After Colin Kaepernick sat during the national anthem, the question was, will other players follow suit? And Broncos linebacker Brandon Marshall did just that last night.
I think that's what it's really about, to create a dialogue, to be able to talk so we can hopefully create change, and a lot of the stuff that happened in the summer, the police brutality and things like that, I think that sparked, a conversation, that sparked things. So we could talk all we want, but, actions speak louder than words. So when he actually took a kneel, when he sat down, he got people thinking, oh, hold on now, what are you doing? And then after that, he was able to say everything he felt and everything he meant. I thought about it for a couple of weeks, man, because as you see, the Arizona game, I didn't do it,
right.
I thought about it for a long time, and, I decided to do it Thursday night.
The Seahawks are also planning to get involved with a pregame demonstration of unity. Nate Boyer, the former Green Beret who spent last summer on the Seahawks, gave a hint as to what the team might do. Boyer said in an interview with Fox Sports Radio, standing together this Sunday is key to making progress. What the team will do is a powerful sign of unification. Tim Hasselbeck still here with us. What's your reaction to all this?
I'm not surprised. I think it's... I think players probably saw the reaction that Colin Kaepernick received, and I'm sure that was kind of met with mixed emotion for many players, but I'm sure that there's many players that identified with Colin Kaepernick and what, and the message that he was trying to send. So I think it probably, was empowering, for other players to see that and feel like it's probably something that they may want to get involved in. And so I would actually expect for us to see more of it from other teams.
It's interesting because I've watched this stuff unfold, and just to be clear about my position, Tim, would I have sat down for the national anthem? No. However, we live in the United States of America, and under our Constitution and freedom of speech and the First Amendment, you have the right to do that. And one of the things that has annoyed me about this whole process that has unfolded is two things. Number one, Colin Kaepernick, you got a lot of people, our military servicemen and women who honor our country, serve in our country, and honor us all by doing so. Folks were offended because they took it as a personal affront to them, like John Tortorella, Team USA hockey coach, and others. If Colin Kaepernick had just taken his position and not elaborated and enunciated his position about that, I would understand that. But when he specifically states, quote, this is not about the military. I am not directing, my dismay at the military in any way. This is about brutality on the part of police officers against the black community and people of color. Everybody's glossed over that, and they've tried to change the narrative into something it was not about. That's number one. Number two, having said all of that, Brandon Marshall, kneeling down last night, others who have done it, like Reed and, Kaepernick's teammates in San Francisco and others, we have to get to a point where now that we've done this, we need to be talking about solutions. We need to be talking about solutions because just making statements is getting to the point where I don't even blame the Washington Spirit or the Women's Soccer Federation for playing the national anthem before the players came out, because just like it was Rapinoe's right, Megan Rapinoe's right to kneel down during the national anthem in support of Colin Kaepernick, it's the Washington Spirit's right to sit up there and say, well, we'll just play this before you come out because it's a private industry and you have the right to do that. We have to put on, our big boy and big girl clothes and understand that rights go both ways. Folks got the right to disagree just like you have the right to express your position. Listen, what it comes down to is that at some point in time, we need to be big enough to have honest conversations about what really ails us as a society and talk about solutions. The Seattle Seahawks, I happen to know through various sources. I know exactly what they're going to do Sunday, at least to some degree. They're going to be locked arm in arm, white, black, to send a message of unity. That's incredibly, incredibly important. It doesn't gloss over the problems that we have. It still doesn't address what's transpiring within the African-American community, which is what Colin Kaepernick's original cause was. And when Brandon Marshall talks about social injustice, I appreciate him saying that. But we have to talk about, we got to get to a point where we're willing to talk about solutions, because just making statements now, we've made the statements, and we need to make more statements. Doesn't need to be this one, but we need to make more statements to bring attention to it, but the goal has to be solutions, and I'm not hearing enough about that.
Well, you know, I agree with you wholeheartedly, especially when you, and I'm not accusing, you know, Megan Rapinoe or Brandon Marshall for trying to just draw attention.
Not am I.
But I will say at this point now, it does kind of seem like there's just a lot of personal attention that's coming along with it. Brandon Marshall's getting more personal attention for this than necessarily the cause is getting. And I would agree. And I think you look at, you know, Doug Baldwin, the way that he's been, you know, you can tell that he's taking it seriously. He's thinking about it. And they're trying to come up with a good solution. And if what you're explaining is there maybe isn't a better representation than that.
Of unity than that. Let's get Max in, yeah.
I wanted to comment on the idea of protests on 9/11 because I've been supportive of Kaepernick, and not just his right to do it, but the fact that he did it. There's systemic inequality. If you're protesting something, injustices in our justice system, extrajudicial kind of problems with police, listen, it's systemic. There are differences in per capita income and education. We all know why, because of the history of this country. That's all legitimate. The idea of the protest, I'm for not just his right to do it, but the fact that he's trying to start a conversation about those issues and address them. But the thing about 9/11, you know, and if it's locked arm in arm, and if it's some kind of a positive kind of show of unity, that's great. But when I first heard it, and I thought, wait, is this a protest? I got a little nervous. I felt uncomfortable. And while I've often said, even on this show, the most important time to affirm someone's right to do something, to protest in this country, is when you like it the least. That's the real test. Some very unpopular group wants to march. You have to support at least their right to do it. The test is how disgusting you find, how repellent you find their cause. The more repellent, the more you should stand up for their right to do it. But there's something about, and in this case, I'm for the issues that they are protesting. There's something about 9/11 that this was not this was an external threat to our country. It was external. And the idea of somehow airing our dirty laundry on that day bothers me. I suppose I'm saying I fail my own kind of test of conviction in this case. I'm not living up to my conviction that that's the most important time to affirm someone's right to do it. I don't like the idea of it if it's not something that is pro-American on 9/11.
Max, let me say this. I respect where you're coming from. And I'm going to go black-white here for this reason. I respect any God-fearing American outside of the black community for sharing exactly the thoughts that you shared, because when we were attacked on 9/11 in 2001, it wasn't about black, it wasn't about white, it was about America being under attack. I'll never forget, as long as I live, when I saw that second plane go into that tower, I said, oh my God, we are under attack. Somebody has attacked the United States of America. So I certainly understand that. But you also have to understand that when you use the word external, what we don't address enough is that there are a plethora of African Americans in this country who feel like that word external applies to them. They don't feel, we don't feel a part of the American fabric. We don't feel like we're a part of this nation to the degree that we should feel. We don't feel that there's a level of fairness that's exercised in our direction compared to what's exercised in other people's direction. And because of that, the word external is applicable to us, and it's very apropos that you brought that up, because the biggest, when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it all, what it really comes down to is that you have a large segment of a disenfranchised community in this nation who feels like the external, the word external, is applicable to them because America hasn't done a good enough job of being inclusionary in certain respects.
Yeah, I would get in there with this. I read something from Admiral McRaven. If you're not familiar with him, he's a 4-star Navy SEAL.
Yes.
He's the Chancellor of the University of Texas.
Yeah.
He wrote this, and I thought this was pretty interesting.
Sure.
Honoring the flag does not imply that the republic for which it stands is perfect. Far from it. honoring the flag is our collective commitment that we will constantly attempt to get better as a nation, to improve as people, and to use the freedoms that we have been given to make the earth a better place. And he goes on in what he wrote to reference the fact that the flag marched with Martin Luther King, that it flew in World War II with the Tuskegee Airmen. All of that, it references that stuff, and the fact that, no, this is not perfect. It's not perfect at all. But what has happened is there have been improvements in that we should all, and I think this is kind of what the Seattle Seahawks are doing, is saying we're all going to we want to make this better without being disrespectful along the way.
Yeah, I want to address, Stephen, your point about the external. I appreciate that point, and I think it's an important one. And I've been talking on this show about the difference between the, it's not America, love it or leave it. It's America, love it, so change it. I very much appreciate the idea that there are groups, including obviously and especially African Americans in this country, who feel that they are the other, that they're treated, the treatment of African Americans throughout the history of this country has been as external and not inclusionary. I understand that. But in the case of 9/11, I think that there is, we were talking about yesterday, Professor Michael Eric Dyson, his article right now on The Undefeated, talking about the conflation of patriotism with nationalism. Patriotism is, nationalism is I love my country no matter what. And that's all around the world just because I'm from there and this is my team. And patriotism is something different, more nuanced, more complex, and much more important. And I understand that on 9/11, maybe I am conflating nationalism with patriotism. But I think if there's a time to do that, it's on 9/11. And again, I may be failing my own kind of personal test of the conviction of your belief in people's, affirming the right to do it. But it doesn't sit well with me on 9/11 if it's something that's protesting in a way that shows the world we're airing our dirty laundry for the world. In one way, it shows you the strength of our institutions and democracy and society, but I still don't like it.
Well, listen, you have every right not to like it, but you have to understand that black folks have every right not to care because of what black people have to go through in this nation still. It means that we're on opposite sides of the fence in terms of our thinking based on our experiences. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. A lot of white folks didn't do that to black folks in this nation. But there's a history of victimization that black folks can legitimately tie ourselves to. Now, it doesn't mean you stand still and stand stagnant and don't work to overcome it, which is why I say we need to start talking about solutions as opposed to just lamenting the problem.
But the difference is,
but you say 9/11.
The difference is those attacks were motivated by, it's a cultural clash. It's a clash of cultures.
We get that.
And in that case, as much as I detest the America, love it or leave it kind of idea, it never made sense to me. In that case, and I'm not saying this is what Seattle's going to do, but when I first heard it, I thought, wait a minute, is that what they're going to do? Kind of protest America on 9/11. In that case, in a contest of cultures and a clash of cultures like that, it could have the appearance that you prefer the other. And believe me, you do not prefer the other in this case.
You do know, you're right about that. We don't prefer the other. Black
not.
folks don't prefer the others. It's just that when you are going through what you're going through, a lot of times you can't see the forest from the trees because you're stuck in the rut of what you're having to endure.
And I understand Mac's concern with the date, but
right
that imagery is beautiful because we are a melting pot.
I appreciate you reading that, absolutely.
Yes, thank you for being here with us. I also want to add that Brandon Marshall will continue not to stand, and he is going to donate an undisclosed amount of money to charities supporting this cause. So he's going to put his money where his mouth is as well.